All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're cracking open a seriously explosive federal case file. We're looking at a sweeping, complex indictment involving two massive figures in the hip-hop world, rising star Pooh Shiesty and rap veteran and music executive Gucci Mane. What's supposedly kicked off as just a standard music industry sit-down in a Dallas recording studio rapidly turned into a total nightmare, resulting in some incredibly heavy federal charges like armed robbery and kidnapping.
Assign the paper. It's done. Now that is a chilling statement. And according to federal prosecutors, this wasn't said during some friendly voluntary negotiation. Gucci Mane, whose legal name is Roderick Davis, allegedly said those exact words under extreme duress. We're talking staring right down the barrel of an AK-style pistol, which is referred to in the court docs as a Draco. And this exact moment is the focal point of the massive federal investigation we're digging into today.
To really wrap our heads around how we got here, we've got to map out the timeline of January 10, 2026. Step 1, you have this business meeting arranged in Dallas. Step 2, an armed confrontation suddenly erupts inside the studio. Step 3, a forced signature on a contractual release. And Step 4, the whole thing allegedly escalates into a full-blown physical robbery. It is just a stunning, chaotic sequence of events that played out in a matter of hours.
So let's look at part 1, the Dallas studio setup. Was this a meeting under false pretenses?
Well, it all traces back to their business relationship. Pooh Shiesty was actually signed to Gucci Mane's music label 1017 Records back in 2020. According to prosecutors, Pooh Shiesty, whose real name is Lontrell Williams Jr., arranged to meet his label boss in Dallas. The guys just discussing the terms of that very recording contract. So Gucci Mane arrived thinking he was walking into a totally standard executive sit-down.
Which brings us to part 2, the confrontation and forced release inside the recording booth.
The crucial thing to understand here is what was actually demanded. Pooh Shiesty allegedly hands Gucci Mane a printed contract that totally severs their business ties. It demanded immediate contract termination, full ownership of his masters and intellectual property, and transferring 1017's approval rights with Atlantic Records directly over to Shiesty. And here's the real kicker. Federal investigators claim these highly specific, typed-up legal demands were deliberately printed hours before the meeting even happened. It really suggests a heavily premeditated plan.
Now, when Gucci Mane initially refused to sign, things allegedly turned violent. Prosecutors say Pooh Shiesty pulled out that AK-style pistol, pointed it right at Gucci Mane's head, and forced his signature. But it didn't end there. The indictment states that another co-defendant blocked the studio doors with a firearm, while a third, rapper Big 30, literally filmed Gucci Mane being forced to state on camera Pooh Shiesty dropped from 1017, basically securing video proof of the release.
Moving right along to part 3, the extortion and robbery, and the escalation of violence.
$450,000. Let that sink in. That is the staggering estimated value of the cash and jewelry allegedly stolen from Gucci Mane and his associates in the moments right after that forced signature. We're talking diamond chains, Rolex watches, earrings, and even a wedding band being physically stripped off the victims.
The federal complaint breaks down the exact steps of the violence directed at Gucci Mane's crew by the other co-defendants. Multiple AK-style pistols were supposedly drawn, victims were pushed onto the studio's control room couch, and one of Gucci Mane's associates, his security guy, was reportedly choked from behind to the point where he nearly lost consciousness. It was, according to the feds, a complete, forceful, armed takeover of that studio.
Okay, part 4. Prosecutors reveal the evidence, essentially showing us how they built this case file.
Imagine you're a juror looking at these 4 main pillars of evidence. First up, prosecutors say they actually have the video recorded inside the studio showing the forced statement. Second, they've got encrypted group chat logs. Third, they secured statements from 5 cooperating witnesses and victims who were actually in the room. And finally, a whole web of studio surveillance footage and cell phone location records tying the defendants right to the scene.
Now this digital trail is fascinating. Investigators accessed chat logs from the Signal app, where Pooh Shiesty was allegedly communicating under a horror movie alias, Michael Myers. Check out this quote from the chat. "I need 6 certs for Saturday, pulling up on WAP, plus 2 drivers." Prosecutors claim certi means certified gangsters. If true, it essentially proves he was recruiting an armed crew right before the Dallas meeting.
But the absolute ultimate digital anchor that placed Pooh Shiesty at the scene, it came from his own ankle. At the time of this January incident, he had just been released from a previous federal firearms conviction down in Florida, so he was wearing a federal ankle monitor.
Investigators allegedly just used the data from his very own government-issued tracking device to link his movements directly to the studio robbery. Literally, you can't make this stuff up.
Let's transition to Part 5, the federal indictment and calculating the true legal stakes here.
A total of 9 individuals were federally indicted by a Dallas grand jury. That includes Pooh Shiesty, his own father, Lontrell Williams Sr., and fellow Memphis rapper Big 30. The government isn't treating this lightly. They're pursuing it as a highly coordinated conspiracy involving multiple actors traveling across state lines.
And the specific charges are severe. We're definitely not just talking about simple assault here. The indictment hits them with heavy federal counts: kidnapping, extortion, armed robbery, conspiracy to commit those acts, plus some very serious firearms offenses.
And here's where the gravity of the situation really hits. If convicted on all these federal counts, Pooh Shiesty and his co-defendants face a statutory maximum penalty of life in federal prison. This is, quite literally, a fight for their freedom and the rest of their lives. Which takes us to Part 6, the defense response and the trial. The battle ahead.
So the battle lines are clearly drawn. On the prosecution side, the feds confidently state that any early evidentiary gaps have been completely shut down with digital and video proof. But on the other side, the defense has firmly pleaded not guilty. Pooh Shiesty's legal team, along with his father's attorney, strongly disagree with the government's narrative. They've called the evidence profoundly underwhelming, and they're quick to point out that an indictment only ever tells one side of a story.
But despite the defense fighting tooth and nail, getting pretrial freedom has been basically impossible. A federal judge recently denied bail for Pooh Shiesty for a second time. The defense even brought forward this massive plan to pay a private security firm $700,000 for 24/7 monitoring. But the judge sided with prosecutors, agreeing he remains a flight risk and a danger to the community. So he stays locked up in a Kaufman County jail cell.
Which brings our entire timeline right up to the looming courtroom showdown. Because of how wildly complex this case is, we're talking about 96 gigabytes of discovery material, the trial got pushed back. The official date is now set for February 17, 2027 in a Dallas federal court. And that leaves us with the ultimate question as we wrap up today's explainer. When February 2027 finally rolls around, how is a jury going to weigh this meticulously constructed digital case file against the defense's steadfast claims of innocence? Will that studio video and the ankle monitor data be enough to hand down a life sentence? Or will the defense be able to poke holes and dismantle the government's timeline? Thank you guys so much for joining me on this deep dive. Definitely keep an eye on this case, because whatever the verdict is, it's going to send absolute shockwaves through the music industry.